Hey everybody, welcome to the very first session of the graphics and effects class here at Webster. My graphics and effects class is maybe a little bit different than the other sections. We do kind of have a hybrid scenario here, but it is a little bit different than maybe even other hybrid classes at Webster. Rather than you log into Zoom and work with me on Zoom Live, you can access these lectures or tutorials, whatever you want to call them, on demand. So I'll upload this to YouTube and you can access them in advance. This should be up probably Sunday night, even though the class is technically Monday at 5:30. You can do them early in the day Monday, or potentially you can do them all the way until, like the weekend after that Monday. So what you want to do is you want to keep up with the class week by week. But you don't necessarily have to do the work on the day at the exact time that the class is scheduled. That said, the time that the class is scheduled, Mondays 5:30 to 8:30, I will be available on Zoom to help you through the projects, and I'll also be available in the classroom. So if you don't prefer Zoom, if you feel like you kind of need to talk to a person not through a webcam or not through like screen share and stuff, that can be a little bit annoying for people. You can certainly come into the classroom and work on the projects on the computers at Webster. Maybe even you don't have a computer capable of doing some of these assignments. The first ones I think you'll be fine with. Photoshop assignments aren't too processor intensive on your computer, but maybe in the After Effects section you'd prefer to work on the school's computers. Regardless, all through the semester you are able to come to the Sverdrup building, room 256, hop on a computer there and talk to me, ask me questions and stuff. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Just don't let things go more than a week without actually participating. Participation is a huge part of this class, so you want to make sure that you participate every single week and do the tutorials every single week. That said, next week is MLK Day, so we technically have the week off. I'm going to give you the course overview, and I'll give you a small assignment here today. So you technically have 2 assignments. They're very, very simple though. You can knock both of those things out this week, or you can spread them out over this week and next week, depending on how you want to do things. So we're all about flexibility in this class, especially with, the COVID restrictions maybe changing things and stuff. I think that we'll be totally safe in this class in particular. But it's kind of up to you how you want to approach things. All right, so I am inside World Classroom right now. I'm inside our class, and you see all of these options here. There's not a ton of things that I want you guys to look at, but there are 3 areas. And the first one is grades, and this isn't something that you really need to look at too often. I think a lot of people are kind of very concerned about where their grades are. And this class is not going to give you a very clear idea until towards the end of the class. So just to show you, there aren't a ton of categories here, right? There's a design project, which is your midterm project. There's a motion project, which is your final project. There is a class participation grade and an in-class assignments grade. And because this thing happens at the very end of class, the motion project, this thing happens throughout the class, so you'll get your final class participation grade at the end of the class. And this happens all the way until the second to last week of class. All 3 of these grades won't be in the grade book until the very end of class, and this one won't even come until the middle of the class. To put that in a more condensed version, if you have questions about your grades, please just email me and I'll give you some kind of feedback or some kind of reassurance that your grade is probably fine. Just letting you guys know, the in-class assignments is worth a huge chunk, and so is the class participation. So if you participate week by week, if you do the assignments completely to the best of your ability, even if there's blemishes, even if there's some issues with them and stuff, this is meant to be an introductory course. We fully expect there to be a few issues there. You're gonna do fine. You'll get full points on the in-class assignments if you complete it completely. And like you post them up here for everybody to see. I'll give you like direct feedback for your project and stuff, and I will let you know directly if you haven't completed an essential element of the assignment. So you'll know if you did it or you didn't do it. And if you did it, you have 100% on this. And if you forget for a week, you got a 0%. So please don't forget for the week. Same goes for this. You'll post your assignments, and maybe I'll just show you real quick. Let's go back to the thing. There we go. And discussions. Okay. So every week you are going to post your projects or whatever the assignment is in the discussions area on Canvas. So the week one, this is maybe week one, technically week two. We'll change that to session one. You'll see when it's actually published. So this will be one assignment, and this will be another assignment, and just introducing yourself, right? Like easy assignment. You just tell me who you are and maybe post a link to a project that you're proud of or something. And then for the participation portion of the grade, you need to respond to at least 2 other people. If someone else introduces themselves and you think that their project is really cool, say so. You need to do more than a couple of sentences, though. It has to be thorough, thoughtful feedback. But you can also respond to someone's response to you, and that counts as well. So every post that you make that's not the opening post, right? That's not the response to the main question or the you submitting your assignment, that counts, and you need 2 per week. And since the first session is technically 2 weeks because of MLK Day, that would be 4 responses and 2 submissions. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If not, feel free to email me and I can maybe chat with you a little more in detail about this stuff. But again, I think once we get started rolling with this stuff, you'll really get the hang of it. So discussions is where you're going to submit all of your projects, except for, your midterm project and your final project. I think your final project will probably go up on discussions as well, but your midterm project is probably going to be a little too large to do that. So you'll end up emailing me that. But our weekly projects will certainly be in the discussions area here. Finally, the third place on Canvas that I'd like for you to look is files. So if you click on files, this is just like a repository of files that we'll use for projects and other class materials and stuff. So you'll find the syllabus here, and we're going to go over that in excruciating detail today, and as well as like the weekly activities. There's just a doc here that says what we're going to do kind of week by week. And this is, subject to change for sure. But we're going to work in Photoshop and After Effects. I might show you like a couple of things outside of these programs. I think we'll do like a font project that if you create fonts, most of the programs cost money, or add-ons for Photoshop or Illustrator cost money, the third-party stuff. But there is like kind of a free browser thing where you can create a font. So that won't really be in Photoshop. There's some Photoshop elements there and stuff. But for the most part, we're working in these 2 programs, Photoshop and After Effects. So hopefully you have these things already. You are provided the Adobe Creative Cloud through the school. And if you don't have that yet, if you're just getting into Webster and you haven't had a chance to download it yet, it is something that you have to like request via IT. So hopefully I remember, but in the description on this YouTube video, I'll give you a link for the form that you have to fill out there and request through IT that you get access to the Creative Cloud. It is totally free for you. So don't think that you have to like pay for Adobe products just to participate in the class. Likewise, there's no books in this class or anything. There should be no costs other than tuition to get through the class in its entirety. Okay, so I'll provide a link to that for you. I'll also provide a link to lynda.com if I can. If you can't get to lynda.com straight from my link, you'll have to go through connections and log in that way. There's like a little banner ad when you log into your Webster Connections for lynda.com. It's like these paid tutorials for a plethora of software, including Photoshop and After Effects. So if you feel at any point I'm going just a little too fast for you, one, you can request that I go a little bit slower in my lectures and stuff. In the past, this has been like I lecture to a crowd of people and I can kind of assess how fast they're picking things up and stuff. So if you feel like I'm just taking things a little too fast for you, send me an email. There's no shame in needing things to come a little bit slower to you and stuff, and I'll adjust accordingly. If you need me to go faster, that's going to be a little bit difficult since it is, an introductory course and people do need me to go a little bit slower. But because this is on YouTube, there's a little option in the bottom right-hand corner where you can turn my speed up to 2x speed. And when I edit these things, that's usually how I'm doing it as well. So if you need things to go a little bit faster, that's the way to do it, especially if I'm just talking too slow for you. Okay, so here is our syllabus for the semester. You are in FTVP 1400 Section 3. It is graphics and effects, and if you're accessing this, you are definitely in the right class, right? We're in spring 2021, in case you didn't know. We meet every Monday at 5:30 p.m. and that could be via Zoom, that could be in the classroom, or that could be not at all. If you're going to do these tutorials and lectures on your own and you don't have questions, you can feel free to skip this meeting time. We will meet in rooms further up 256, and there is some limited capacity in 256. So I think there's 16 people in the class currently. So if everyone were to show up for the class, we would not have enough room and we would need to find some kind of overflow room, which isn't fun, but I think it works out fine for this class, especially since all of the materials are accessible online. So 256 if you want to meet with me in person. If not, that's cool too. I will post a Zoom link every week on the announcements on Canvas. So that might be another area you want to look on the Canvas page, but you should get emails, like email notices that, hey, there's new announcement for this class, and you should be able to just access that via email. That'll be my YouTube link, and that will be my Zoom link. So those things will be two separate announcements because I usually post the YouTube link maybe a day in advance of the class, sometimes just a few hours in advance of the class. My name is Trevor Younger. That's how you say that. It's spelled kind of funky, but yeah. Trevor Younger. You just call me Trevor, though. That's fine. Very casual in that regard. Also, emails. There's two listed here. There's my Webster email account and my Gmail email account. If you want to add these to your contacts on Gmail or whatever you use, that's probably a good idea. My Gmail account will get to me just a little bit faster. The Webster one redirects to my Gmail account, so it takes a few minutes if you're emailing me there. The reason to use the webster.edu one is if you're asking about like specifics on grades, they want to keep that secured on their servers or something. So if I need to tell you like a percentage, if you say, hey, I want to know specifically what my grade is right now, then use the edu account. Otherwise, just use the Gmail account. If you want to know, like, am I doing okay in the class, I can certainly say, yes, you are doing okay via my Gmail account. And, if you have questions about things, the Gmail account's probably a much better way to go too. I list my Facebook here as well. If you prefer to talk to me via Facebook Messenger, that's fine. If you need something that's like maybe back and forth, like a conversation that we would have, that's text, Facebook's fine. You can also maybe schedule some time with me for like a Zoom meeting so we can talk real quick, or I can show you something via screen share or something. But my schedule is kind of erratic. Just maybe try to reach out to me a couple of days in advance. So if you're trying to reach out to me Sunday or Monday before class starts to finish your project, that's not a good idea. If you need to actually chat with me via video. If you need a quick answer on email and stuff, I usually get back to people really, really quickly. The only exception to that is my wife is pregnant and we expect her to give birth. It's supposed to be March 4th, but it could be anytime late February and early March. So there's a chance that you email me and I'm just gone for, a day or two, and that's probably why. I'll try to remember to set my email with an automatic reply that says, "Hey, I'm gone for a couple of days here," but knowing me, I'll probably forget, especially if things happen at an unplanned time. So if I'm just incommunicado for a second, that might be the reason, especially if it's late in February or early in March. Okay, so course description. You should have probably read this either with your advisor or online. So this is what the class is. The visual tool set of the modern producer is not limited to just what can be done with cameras and editing, but also contains elements made outside of the physical production. This course will concentrate on those elements, introducing concepts like typography, shape, form, as well as shape layers, masking, compositing, motion tracking, chroma keying, particle systems, and delivery. This course is designed to introduce you to two very important parts of the post-production process: motion graphics and visual effects. These are crucial parts of every film and video producer's toolkit, and it's important that at least once you see what these things can do. This description is very FTVP oriented. You might be like an animation major and stuff, and there's certainly some value to the class if you are. But in terms of FTVP stuff, chances are you'll have some kind of motion graphics or visual effects in any film, even if it's not, Marvel emulating film. And even if you aren't adept at this stuff, even if you don't plan on doing it, maybe you plan on hiring someone to do this portion of a film, it's important to understand what can be done and how it can be done, and maybe some really basic stuff that you can tell who's doing something very well, or how to enhance something that's already somewhat good, but maybe make it better and stuff. I think a lot of the concepts here will help you out with that, and just practicing things like typography is a really good example. You might just have personal aesthetics that you can develop over time in the class, where this is what I like, and you can find that out if you haven't found that out already, or this is what works well with these types of videos. So we are very video centric, but the first half of the class is all Photoshop. So there's photo stuff, there's just basic design stuff as well. Okay, the next category here, course learning outcomes. So by the end of this class, you should be able to do all of this stuff. You should be able to demonstrate the ability to create still or motion graphics for video. You should be able to show an intermediate knowledge of image adjustments and color tools. You should be able to develop composited images and videos using masks, keys and rotoscoping, and you should be able to organize efficient post-production workflows. Yeah, so if at any point towards the end of the class you feel like we didn't do any of these things, please reach out to me. Tell me, hey, I want to know about more. Tell me more about workflows, and I'll certainly adjust the class to accommodate that sort of thing. So in terms of all of this stuff, I think the thing that we've missed out on sometimes is this particle systems. So in the past, if we're working inside Sverdrup classrooms, there's this really great third-party plugin called Trapcode, and it includes Trapcode Particular. So particles are like if you wanted to do snow in a scene, or you wanted to do rain or smoke, or anything that would be a series of particles animated in a certain way. That particular is like a perfect way for introductory people to get into particle systems, because you can kind of see how they work in real time and kind of manipulate things in an easier way that's very graphics oriented. Like you really see what's happening as you adjust these values. And there's like CC particle systems in After Effects. If this is like Greek to you, no problem. We'll get there eventually, right? But it's the stuff that's in After Effects natively is very advanced. So if there's a chance that we don't get into particles is the short part of this story. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that stuff, I can certainly talk on it, and I can show you how it works, but you might not have to reproduce it. Yeah, I think the last 2 semesters we've missed out on particles. Otherwise, we do cover everything that is listed in the syllabus there. Okay, so here is the grading, and we kind of talked about this already when we looked at Canvas, but let's break it down again. There's in-class assignments, it's worth 30% of your grade. Class participation, it's worth 20% of your grade. The design project is worth 25, and the motion project is worth 25. So the bulk of the class, almost every single week, is a tutorial. You complete it. That's the in-class assignment. So every session, I'm sorry, not every week, because our first session is actually 2 weeks. So every session is a tutorial. You complete the tutorial, you post your results on Canvas discussions, and that makes up for 30% of your overall grade at the end of the class. Class participation is your response, your critique of other people's projects. Remember, you have to do 2 responses for every post. Not every post for every person, but every assignment. So 2 other students talk about their projects, and we're happy. This week you'll have the introduce yourself, so respond to 2 people on the introduce yourself discussion, and then we'll have memes. That'll be our first project in the course, and you should respond to 2 of those memes. And even if it's not like a super intellectual educated response, if it's not all design centric and stuff, even if it's just about the content itself and what people chose there and stuff, I think that's important feedback too. So long as it's a thoughtful and thorough response, we are happy. There are certainly things that you'll be able to say right off the bat in terms of design and stuff as well, especially if you've worked in Photoshop before. So if you notice that there's like an exposure convergence, right? So you have some white text and the background of your image is also white, and it makes the text difficult to read. You can certainly say, hey, I have a hard time reading this text for this reason, and that is a good, thoughtful response. So critique's important, and it's also important to remember that we're all kind of in this introductory phase here. we do want some feedback to get better at what we're doing here. So feedback's really important for us. Okay, the design project, this will happen around the midway point of the semester. So we will we'll complete the Photoshop portion of the class. You'll do a design project that's using almost exclusively Photoshop. You can do some a few things outside of it. But what you'll end up doing is a one-sheet poster. So that's like a very high resolution movie poster. And this can just be like a fictional, never going to be created movie. That's just fine by me. But you do have to have like some kind of concept and stuff, and think about the themes and the tone of the movie, and kind of your poster should reflect those things through typeface and through color and design. All of that's really important. Also, you're working in a very high resolution, which causes some issues that you might not anticipate inside Photoshop. Even if you've worked in Photoshop pretty extensively, there's some things when you work in a very high resolution that you might not have experienced before. The other thing about this one is you can't infringe copyrights. So you can't just like take images from online that are copyrighted. Basically everything is. You can use maybe some open, what's it called, public domain stuff. That's a potential thing, but even then, like with a poster, it's going to be really hard to find something that's large enough to cover your entire poster. So maybe some elements can be Creative Commons or public domain and stuff. And if you have questions about what constitutes as being copyrighted and what doesn't, we can talk about that when we get a little bit closer to that. The motion project doesn't have those same kinds of restrictions, and it's very open in terms of what you want to do. So it has to be done inside After Effects. You create a shot, a scene, or a sequence. So you can do multiple shots if you have to. It has to be of an appropriate difficulty. So the idea is, a good rule of thumb is it needs to be 3 times more difficult than any of the tutorials we do throughout the course. So it should take you 3 times the time, or you have to go and research and learn a whole new thing inside After Effects. That's okay too. It might be combining 3 of the tutorials we did in class to create a certain shot or something. Again, we'll talk more in detail as we get closer to this thing, but there's no restrictions on time and stuff. Usually that's the question that everybody asks, like, how long does my shot need to be? And as we'll experience in this class in a bunch of tutorials, some shots could last 5 seconds and be very, very intricate, and other shots could last 30 seconds and be incredibly simple. So that's not a good way for us to assess how difficult something is. So it can be as long or short as you'd like. You can animate a logo for your business or another business or something. That's fine with me. But you will have to pitch your project, and I'll have to give you approval to move forward and start working on this stuff. So if you want to think well in advance, you certainly can. But that stuff won't come until the last few weeks of the course. All right. The assignment policy for the class: late work will not be accepted without proper documentation, like a doctor's note under any circumstances. Likewise, course incompletes will not be given to any student without proper documentation. With coronavirus, if someone were to get that, certainly stay home. If you can't work, if it's that bad, or like if you have any situation where you like just can't work on a computer and stuff, you're so sick, or I don't know, maybe you lose internet access, but you still don't feel safe coming to campus or something, please contact me as soon as you possibly can with that. Please don't just like go dark on us and then come back several weeks later and ask how to catch up or something. But if you get out in front of things as quickly as possible, the more likely we are to help you. And it says course incompletes will not be given, sort of. But I gave my first course incomplete last semester because one of my students got coronavirus. So it's totally a possibility that you just need more time or more flexibility with stuff. And all I can say is just communicate with me. Tell me what you need so I can accommodate that. If you don't talk to me, then it's much more difficult for me to make those accommodations. Okay, so materials used. So this is going to talk to you about what you would do if you were coming to class, like you need something to take notes on. And you also need a hard drive. So if you do plan on coming to the classroom, you need to bring an external hard drive. If you're working at home, you can probably work on your internal hard drive. I would recommend, if you're going to spread out your assignments, so like you're going to work on this over a few days, you make backups of your projects, and like Photoshop document file, a .psd or an AEP. They're fairly small files usually. Exceptions being maybe your design project, that very large resolution poster. And you should be able to just like Google Drive that stuff as a backup. But if you have an external hard drive and make a backup that way, I think that that's a good idea. If you're spreading things out. If you're going to do it all in one session, chances are your computer's not going to die and stuff. And if you're doing it all in one session, chances are if it did die, you could pick it up and do it over again. Like you're working that quickly through the class and stuff. But data loss isn't an excuse for not turning in your assignment. If it happens one time and you need an extra day or something, like one extension because of that, that's fine. But if it's happening every week, I'm going to feel like you're trying to take advantage of me. So please, do back up your stuff. It only takes that one time for your hard drive to die forever for you to really learn this very important lesson that we all learn in post-production, and that's back up your material. So please do back up your material. I don't know that you have to take notes if you're the type of person that works better taking notes. Feel free to do so, but it's not a requirement. I think somewhere in here it's going to say that later on people might ask to look at your notes and stuff. I certainly won't do that. So if you want to buy a hard drive, cool. If you're working at home, maybe you don't need it. The other thing about working between home and in the classroom is that the Creative Cloud apps are not updated in 256. I was just in there yesterday and they hadn't been updated yet. Maybe they'll be updated sometime in the middle of the semester. But this does create a challenge for us if you're going to work both at home and in the classroom. So if you do half of the project at home and then bring it to the classroom and expect to work on it, it's not going to work for you because you can't use a newer version of Photoshop and then come in and work on an older version of Photoshop and it just works naturally. You can go the opposite way. So you can go from the classroom and the older version of Photoshop, bring it home, and then work on 2021 version of Photoshop, and it'll load up that project and you can finish at home. That's a fine way to work, but not the opposite way. So don't start at home and then bring it to school and expect it to open. So that does create some issues, especially if you're having like trouble with a project and you want to bring it in to show me what trouble you're having so I can fix it and stuff. I might not be able to, and we're not able to update those programs in the actual classroom. So that's not an option for us either. So if you do end up in that situation, maybe Zoom screen share is the best solution for you. If you do want to start your project at school again and then take it home, you should have no issues there. Okay, there's still more to go here, plenty more to go through with this syllabus. All right, so the Media Center, I'll just read this verbatim. Webster University makes a substantial investment in equipment and facilities for our production majors, and as such, we have a few policies in place to make sure that the equipment is cared for properly. We need your help in ensuring that all equipment is in good working order for all students to use. Equipment and facility access is a privilege, not a right, and can be revoked for not following policy. So, there are certain policies with the classroom. There's not a whole lot that you can check out for this class in particular. There is. Spherdrip 256 is like just a computer lab. You can reserve times for those rooms outside of class if you'd like to work in there. I'm sure that you can also probably reserve times in Spherdrip 118 if there's not a class going on in there. And there is a benefit to working in 118 because there's Wacom computers, and you can also check out like a Wacom pen. So if you'd prefer not to work with a mouse, which no one really likes working with a mouse, I'll work with a mouse since most people do. But like if you want to like actually draw on the screen, especially in Photoshop stuff, you can create much better projects, honestly, and that is an option for you if you do come to class and stuff. That would be something that you can check out through the Media Center, and it's what's it labeled as? There's some term for it where any student at Webster can check out certain things, and you have access to all of that stuff, like a university checkout. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. But if you go there, if you just show your ID and stuff, you should be able to gain access to a Wacom pen. You should be able to access maybe even a basic camera, tripod, stuff like that, if you need it. I'm not sure why you would need a camera and tripod, maybe to get textures or something. I'm not restricting you creatively. You do have the ability to check out some things from the Media Center. If you break them and stuff, they can revoke your access. So please take care of these things, and everything costs a lot of money and stuff. Same goes for the computers. In 256, you'll notice that people have kind of messed up a couple of things with a couple of the computers, like the USB ports and stuff, from people yanking out their hard drives a little bit too quickly or jamming them in the wrong way, the USB. So, don't do that. Be gentle with these things. They do cost a lot of money. Please don't break them. That's that. Facilities here. There's there's a note about the Media Center on the very back page here, and we'll talk about that too. So about the facilities, edit and studio facilities are available on a first come first served basis. All facilities and workstations must be checked out in the Media Center prior to use. Food and drink are prohibited in the labs except for drinks in a sealed container with a twist off bottle cap, which are to be kept on the floor and away from sensitive equipment. Any damage to university equipment while using a facility will be the responsibility of the student. Food brought into the classroom must be kept inside student bags and not consumed at all, apparently, right? Because I guess this wording is a little bit old. So you can't eat at Webster in the classrooms for sure. If you have a bottle of water, you can have a drink of that really quickly. We do have to wear masks and stuff, so put your mask back on after you take the drink and stuff, and that's okay. But that's about as far as we go with food and drink in the facilities now. So don't bring food, please. If you do, you can maybe eat it outside or something, but you're not going to eat in the lab for sure. Okay, next thing up, attendance and tardiness. Attendance for this course is mandatory. However, in-person attendance is not. Webster's made and continues to make strong efforts to protect its students from infection while on campus. If you feel more comfortable working remotely for either part part of or the entirety of this course, you are welcome to do so without penalty. If a student is absent from in-person activities, he or she is required to participate in the remote session of the class. In the case that you cannot participate in either in person or online at the specified times, you will need to contact the instructor at least 1 week prior to the planned absence to make arrangements. So yeah, it's basically what we've been talking about this entire time. If you don't want to be in person, fine. Just access YouTube and work on the project sometime during the week and have it done before the next class session. If for some reason you can't do either, please contact me in advance. That way we can take care of things. Tardiness. Due to the altered format of this class, tardiness will not be excused. If you find yourself running late, consider attending the later in-person session. That doesn't really apply to us. That said, we have strict guidelines about how many students can be in a room, so if there's no space for you due to tardiness, you will need to attend remotely. So that is kind of the deal. So if you are wanting to get into the class and work in class, but you're a little bit late and all the chairs are taken at that point, you'll have to go to a different room, some kind of overflow room, and just attend remotely instead via Zoom, and you can talk to me that way. I will be available on Zoom the entire time during our session time, so it won't be too dissimilar, but you'll have to screen share with me to get access and stuff, and you'll it might not be a bad idea to just like have a webcam with you if you have like a plug-in webcam, since some of the labs don't have webcams. If you have a laptop with a webcam, it might be a good idea to bring that with you to class, regardless of if you think you'll need it or not, just in case you get pushed out of class and you need to access via Zoom. But even if you don't have a camera, if you at least have a microphone, that could work and stuff, and you can check out University Loan. That is what it's called at the Media Center. So you can check out some like a USB microphone in the Media Center. Worst case scenario, you need to talk to me on Zoom and you don't have a camera, and you have to figure something out on campus, on the fly. Go to the Media Center, ask them for a USB microphone. They should be able to check it out to you, and then you can hop on a computer wherever you can find one and work that way. Okay, so there's a monthly meeting. I don't think this happened at all last semester, but maybe it'll come back this semester. Students usually know a little bit more about this than I do. So you might be enrolled as an FTVP person in the monthly meeting program, and I think that that's a way for them to also grant you access for certain things that you can check out from the Media Center. So you have to be registered for it, even if the monthly meeting isn't necessarily happening. I know it hasn't happened monthly in quite a while, so that I guess is a little bit different. If you want, there's this like Facebook group that's linked here. If you're on Facebook, it's not a bad idea to just join that group and, get some information about what's going on in the department and stuff from students and faculty. That's usually where things are posted, especially if you aren't in classes with some of the big players in the program that'll tell you about what's going on and stuff. It's not a bad idea to just to join that group there. Likewise, the group also like posts things about casting calls and crew calls and stuff. So even if you're not an FTVP major, you can get access to this group. You can join the group and stuff, and maybe you just have just as a hobby would like to perform in a film and stuff. You have the option to reach out to students and find out what productions are going on and around campus that way. So if you're on Facebook, it's a good idea. If you're not, probably not the biggest deal in the world, but do keep your ear to the ground about rumblings about this monthly meeting. I think maybe Sometimes at Sverdrup they draw a big calendar on the wall, on the dry erase wall and stuff, and maybe they will list any kind of monthly meeting there. I would think so, if they continue to do that this semester. All right, there's a portfolio review, and some of this information is important, and others is maybe a scare tactic. All right, all FTVP majors will be required to undergo a review of their work in their senior year. Consequently, it's important that you save examples of all your coursework, including assignments, papers, notes, exams, group work, etc. Above all else, save every single one of your film and video projects from your classes. And that's really the thing that you want to take away from this, is that you should save all of your projects that you have in this class, even the in-class tutorial ones, for potentially a portfolio in the future. Even if you think that maybe this one isn't the best in the world, save your AEP, and you might want to like revisit it and rework it a little bit, maybe make it your own more. So save all of your projects and all of the stuff that's necessary for your project to work. So if we're working in After Effects, the AEP is very, very small, but if you have little videos that are a part of that, you'll want to save those videos as well. That way you can work on it without having any kinds of issues and stuff. The thing about notes, that seems very overreaching to me. I don't think I certainly won't ask you for your notes. I think I get why they're saying this, though, is, in some classes, if someone says that they were in class but they weren't taken, like we didn't take attendance for you in that class, maybe you showed up a little bit later, flew under the radar or something, and there's like some kind of discrepancy about was she in class or not, and then you can provide some kind of evidence, like, oh, here are my notes from that class, and then that would help in instances like that. So it's important to save those, maybe for that reason, but for your portfolio, I'm not sure why that makes a ton of sense. Anyway, let's continue to move on. So here's the university grading standards. This is just like the basic, this is how your grades are usually done at Webster. And I feel like for production classes, this is really kind of troublesome, honestly, where it's very subjective, right? Superior work in the opinion of the instructor versus good work versus satisfactory work. Again, with the in-class tutorials here, if you do the projects to the best of your ability and complete all the major aspects of the project, like you didn't leave something out, that you did everything that was supposed to be done, but maybe it animates a little bit funky, or maybe there's some seams that I can see and stuff. I'm not gonna like bump you down for that stuff. It's really just like very technical. Like, did you turn your stuff in on time? Did you do it completely? And did you do it in a way that demonstrates that you tried, right? And if all those answers are yes, then you have an A. It's just a 100% for that stuff. So there's no me grading you down for that stuff. Likewise, even just like your responses to people, it's very analytic in the class. So like I have an analytics report of all of you. Like I can click on your name and see all of your responses and stuff, and get like very solid numbers for how many responses you had. And it's just like calculated like a computer would, right? So there's no subjectivity there, and there's no like I think that your critique wasn't strong enough and I give you a C here, right? Like if you do it and you do it completely, you get an A. The only areas where that's not the case are the design project and the final project, and I'll kind of go over in detail, like what's good about your project, what could be better and stuff. We'll do like a critique session for those things And it'll be a lot like this tutorial, only we'll just be going over your work and stuff. But you should have a pretty strong idea through when you submit your weekly projects. I'll give you feedback and I'll tell you, like, oh, your seams are weird here, or the animation's weird here, and you could have done this differently and stuff. You won't get points off for those weekly assignments, but when you do get to the final assignment, at that point, you should have all of that knowledge, right? So if there's a certain thing that you have to, like that exposure convergence with text, right? So if you did that in this meme project, you're not going to have points off. But if you do that on your poster, you would have points off. So hopefully that makes sense to you. I try to keep things as non-subjective as possible, because it always feels a little bit weird when you just say like, oh, I think you deserve this grade, right? Like that seems like a funny thing. And this grading standards, it gives us a lot of flexibility to do whatever we want as professors. And I'm just letting you guys know, I'm not going to do that. I'll adhere to the most non-subjective terms I can. Okay. Next up, university policy statements. So here's a bunch of legal stuff. This course is governed by the university's policies as published in the university catalog. Academic honesty. The university is committed to high standards of academic honesty. Students will be held responsible for violations of these standards. Please refer to the university catalog for a definition of academic dishonesty and potential associated disciplinary actions. So I have had students basically plagiarize projects in this class in particular. I've had it in other classes as well. So as much as you think like, oh, you can't plagiarize in a production class, right? Like you have to create things. You can. So you can potentially share projects between each other. If you have a friend in this class and they're doing it too, but you're having trouble, don't ask them for their project and then you kind of use theirs and change a couple of elements, because I'll probably be able to find it. Also, like the thing with the design project, if you use images from someone else's stuff and so here's an example of what I saw. Someone used like a clip art image and then added some text to it and called that like their logo, and then they used that as like it wasn't a poster, but it was a different assignment. And that is like basically plagiarism. Like your whole logo is just this image from somebody, it's from another place, and then you added some text underneath it. So that's not an acceptable thing. It's okay to use some things as like maybe a starting point. So maybe your logo includes a beach ball, and you took a photograph of a beach ball and you kind of traced the beach ball and you painted the colors of the beach ball, and then you took away the image of the beach ball. So that started as like the basis for a portion of your logo. That's okay, right? Like you've fundamentally changed that thing. If you just took that picture and put some text on top of it, that's not yours anymore, right? So if at any point you feel like, I'm not sure if I'm maybe crossing the line with academic honesty, you can ask me. But chances are, if you're asking that question, you might be in a gray area and maybe don't do it. Also about that, it says, refer to the university catalog for what happens if you do this stuff. And I'll just tell you outright, like it says that it's the professor's discretion. So maybe if it's a really gray area, maybe we let it slide or ask you to redo the project and stuff. But if it's like an egregious thing, like you tried to trick me and make me think that this was your work and it wasn't, like you borrowed your friend's project and then you posted it and said it was your own, then yeah, you actually will just like fail the course, like the entirety of the course. So please don't do that. If you're falling behind or you have some kind of trouble with a project, just reach out to me. If you need like an extension, I can probably grant it. If you have to turn in something late, you'll get a late grade, but you'll still get a grade, and you'll still like retain the grades from the entire course and stuff. So the copying or stealing material is definitely the worst way to go if you're having trouble in the course. Okay, drops and withdrawals. Please be aware that the drop, add, and withdrawal dates are listed each semester on the university website, in the university catalog, and in the course description book. If the course is dropped within the drop add period, no notation of the course will appear on the student's transcript. Withdrawals taking place after the published drop date, you'll get a W on your transcript. So yeah, if you drop the class before the drop date, so like you watch this video tomorrow and you decide this class isn't for me, you have until I think Friday to drop the course. And then, you know, you won't be charged for the course. Nothing will be on your transcripts. No harm, no foul. You're just not in the class anymore. If you wait until after this week, then you'll get a withdrawal, and like depending on when you withdraw from the class, I think you get some kind of refund, not the entire refund for the class, and you get a W on your transcript. But a W looks a whole lot better than an F. So if you're really struggling within that withdrawal period and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this class and pass, maybe it's best that you withdraw. You can always reach out to me and ask me for advice and ask me if I think that that's the best solution for you and stuff. Feel free to email me about that stuff. I'm not I'm not going to be offended or anything like that. In my undergraduate career, I definitely dropped a couple of classes. So, I've been there. If you think that the class is something that it's not, then hopefully you find out in that first week. And if not, potentially you can withdraw from the class. Okay, special services. If you have registered as a student with a documented disability and are entitled to classroom or testing accommodations, please inform the instructor at the beginning of the course of the accommodations you will require in this course so that these can be provided. I haven't gotten any of these emails yet, but usually there's an email that gets sent out to me if you've registered with a disability, and usually that's for like testing accommodations and stuff, or maybe there's sometimes some things that you might not even be have something documented that you need and we can still make accommodations for. So maybe you have some eyesight issues and you need to be closer to the front of the room if you're going to be in the room, and we can totally accommodate for that. That's totally fine. I've had some students that have color blindness, and that would absolutely have some kind of impact on how you can do like color correction stuff. So certainly let me know if you have something like that. That way we can help you out with that. If we don't know about it, then we can't. Because I haven't gotten any of these emails, I'm just going to assume that I'm not going to. So if I was supposed to, please let me know. You can email me, or I guess you can maybe talk to me on Zoom after everybody leaves the Zoom. Like, I guess that's the equivalent of everyone leaving the room after the class is over and you talk to me after class. Or, if you're in class and you wait until after class or before class and talk to me in person, that's fine too. But do let me know if you need some kind of accommodations. There's no tests in this course. There's no book in this course either. A lot of the things that are usually on that list probably don't apply, but especially if you have some kind of site issue, I think that that's something that's important to know. Okay, disturbances. Since every student is entitled to full participation in the class without interruption, disruption of class by inconsiderate behavior is not acceptable. Students are expected to treat the instructor and fellow students with dignity and respect, especially in cases where diversity of opinions arise. Don't have any kinds of outbursts in class. If you feel like you're on the verge of like some kind of mental meltdown, not even kidding about this, like some people get that way, over the course of a semester. I understand that a lot of people are like out on their own for the first time, or away from family for the first time, or in lockdown for an extended period of time. Like if you're having some severe issues, and you feel something coming on, like you're gonna freak out if you're in class and stuff, just skip it. Send me an email and just say, hey, I'm mentally not prepared for this, and that's not something that I'm going to judge you for. If you can't do it on a certain day, again, remember, like, this class is very open. You can just do the YouTube tutorial on your own, and maybe reach out to me if you have questions outside of class and stuff too. That's totally fine. This other thing about treating the professor and students with respect, that is important, right? Especially because in our discussions we're going to kind of critique each other's work. It's really important that you critique the work and not the person. And like we can all accept kind of criticism of our work, and we as creators have to have somewhat thick skin about that. But for a weekly projects, that you do, maybe a couple hours every week, maybe 5 hours maximum if you really have some trouble with a particular project, it's not going to hurt our hearts, that you say, hey, this could be better. So that's no problem there. I have had issues, especially since people have been quarantined and stuff, with people getting very argumentative with me via email, and I would prefer that you don't do that. So if you find yourself getting frustrated or aggravated and sending me very, very short emails very, very frequently, take a step back, maybe take a couple hours, maybe take a day, and send me something that's not where I have to respond to like 20 rapid fire emails. That's not a professional way to communicate. I'm very casual about things. It's okay if you send me a two sentence email like, I can't figure this out, can you help me? And maybe we can like set up a meeting and stuff. The other thing is, like, if you send me very, very vague emails, that doesn't help either. So like if it's like, I can't do this project, that doesn't help me at all. Like, tell me specifics about what's going on and stuff, and maybe I can communicate via text what you need to do. Or if it's something that you just can't articulate, try to set up a meeting with me where we can talk and I can see what's going on and stuff. But if it's just a casual emails are fine. Argumentative emails are less fine. Okay, so student assignments retained. Some random student assignments or projects will be retained by the School of Communications for the purpose of academic assessment as it relates to student learning outcomes. In every such case, the student's names and all identifying information about the student will be removed from the assignment or project. So the idea here is if my bosses want to see how well my students performed, I can show them your project. And the whole idea of removing your identifying information is, I guess, to make you feel comfortable that I'm not like, look at how bad this project is, and laughing with my colleagues about it. I'm never going to do that. Like, think about how and like I'm incentivized to show people the best projects from the class, right? Like that I taught you guys in a way that you exceeded expectations and stuff, rather than I show how poorly I did in communicating a certain project and how poorly people performed in response to that. That's not a good idea for me, so I'm not going to do that. So if I ever show anyone your projects, it'll be the good ones for sure. But that said, some people outside the class may see these projects and stuff. And I have had to show at least one project because it was somewhat troublesome. It seemed like a student may commit violence based on it and stuff. So do keep that in mind. We are, I try to let you guys do whatever you want, but if there's like a red flag that like something seems dangerous, I'm required to report it and stuff. So try to stay away from things that seem to incite violence or look like very self-destructive. We're getting dark here, so chances are you guys won't do that. Keep it fun, keep it casual, and we'll be good in this class. Next thing, contact hours for the course. It is essential that all classes meet for the full instructional time as scheduled. The class cannot be shortened in length without rescheduling and or makeup activities. So basically this is like, I'll be there from 5:30 to 8:30 every week, and I'll be there on Zoom from that time too. So you can pop in at any point in that time slot, but I have to be there the whole time. And that's all that is. All right, we're into the COVID stuff now. So follow health and safety guidelines. Students are reminded to follow all COVID-19 health and safety guidelines to keep our community healthy. The guidelines are outlined on Webster's COVID-19 page, and there is a link there for you. Please review this website because it may change over time and stuff. Even if you've looked at it once before, make sure that you're familiar with it before the class starts. Before coming to class, one important requirement for all students and faculty is that everyone must complete a daily health screening before coming to class. Details are available on the link above. So last semester it was like a daily health screening form. You fill out the form, they send you an email, and then you show that email to someone at the front door of Sverdrup, and then you're granted access to the building. If you don't have a thermometer and can't fill out that form or forget to for some reason, you can go to the public safety building, and then they ask you all the questions and check your temperature and then give you like a little card that can grant you access to the building as well. So those were your two options last semester. Since this class is on Monday, things may have changed, but I anticipate they're about the same. All right, there's some things here. In-class expectations. The health and safety guidelines include the following. Everyone in a classroom will be required to wear a mask or face covering at all times. Yes. Maintain social distance in classrooms, including with seating and while entering and exiting. So entering and exiting ends up being kind of an issue more than the seating, because they kind of have seats blocked off for us and stuff. So if you give people appropriate amount of space as you walk out the doors and stuff, that's a good thing. Food and drink will not be allowed in the class. Of course, we talked about that already. If you're feeling sick, do not go to class. That is self-explanatory, but needs to be stated. You will be asked to disinfect the items you use during class or labs before leaving the room. And I want to kind of switch this on you a little bit, because if you think about it, how many people are probably just going to leave the room without disinfecting their stuff? And then someone else coming into the room expecting that it's disinfected using this stuff has now got the touch issue, right? So as a slight inverse to this, what I would highly recommend is that you disinfect your stuff before you start working on it, just in case, someone else was in there and just ran out of the room. Because I'm seeing a lot of people do that stuff. So protect yourself in that way. And if you want to help other people out, disinfect your stuff afterwards as well. So the best plan of action is to just wipe down your stuff. There's wipes in every room, or there should be, to wipe down your keyboard and mouse and anything else that you touch, your tabletop and stuff. Wipe it down before you use it, then wipe it down after as well. Okay, very last page here. This is from the Media Center. It says, as part of our effort to combat the coronavirus on campus, the Media Center and Photo Lab Darkroom have instituted policies intended to keep our checkout centers from becoming gathering places for groups of students. The policy will impact students the most. Reservations are now made online and stuff. So basically what this is like, if you worked here last semester, you're familiar with this. There are 15-minute time slots that you can check out things from the Media Center, and you need to make your reservation in advance. You can either call them and say, hey, I want to check this out at this time, and they'll set it up for you. There's a phone number listed here. Or you can use web checkout. So again, log into your connections account. You'll see a little banner just like the lynda.com thing that I mentioned earlier. For web checkout, you can click it. You can go there, log in, set all the stuff that you want to check out, and time and date, and you should be able to check that stuff out. Okay, but it's important that you reserve in advance. You don't just show up and you show up at the time that you say. And then everything's hunky-dory. Apparently the same thing happens with the darkroom. I don't really use the darkroom though, so I can't say how that actually worked out last semester. It makes sense though. Make some reservations, call them, and make sure that it's cool for you to show up before you just show up. All right, so that is the syllabus. Sorry it took so long. There was a lot of information to cover there. And there's a lot of just class information as well, some things that needed to be elaborated on. So hopefully you have a kind of firm idea about how the class is going to go, how you might work within this class, and we can get started. So what we're going to do is create some memes. So let's get into Photoshop. If you haven't installed Photoshop yet, you should have access through the FDVP department. You should be able to just use your connections account to download the Adobe Creative Cloud, which would then let you install and operate Photoshop. If you haven't done it, please do that. And if you have any trouble, you might need to contact the IT department. So let's make sure that this stuff works as soon as possible, so you don't end up at the end of the week and unable to actually complete the project. If you do have some trouble with it, you can contact me and I can give you some kind of alternatives to at least get you through the week. There are some free alternatives out there that are semi-Photoshoppy, but the more you get into that, the more you'll start to lose some of the nuances of the actual program. So if you have used Photoshop before, you might have changed some settings around, and we want to reset those for the purposes of the class. If you're kind of adept at Photoshop already, you might just be safe to leave things how they are. But if you want to kind of learn from scratch, we're going to do a factory reset of the program. So how I'm going to do that on a PC is press Control, Alt, and Shift on my keyboard, and then I'm going to click to open Adobe Photoshop. I think it's a little bit different on a Mac. I think it's Command Option Shift click. So right away it's changed my scratch disks back to the C drive, which is an issue for me, and it's going to say like, hey, you can change that real quick, which I'm going to. You might get the same thing if you have a hard drive, like your boot up hard drive doesn't have a ton of space on it and stuff. So you want to make sure that you have a scratch disk area that has plenty of space so you can keep working. This is basically like a temporary area for your projects. So so as you're working, you create project files, and they can get big and big and big, and that'll make sure that it's being stored on a hard drive that has an appropriate amount of space, so your hard drive doesn't crash or anything as you're working. All right, so the program is now open, and you get this nice little landing page that tells you a little bit about new additions to Photoshop in 2020. A lot of these things have been around before, but there are certain improvements. If you want to learn about those things and specifics on those things, you just click any of these buttons and it'll tell you a little bit more about it. We're just going to go ahead and close that and actually get into the program itself. So this is what you'll see every time you open Photoshop. If you just open it outright, you can potentially open like a Photoshop document file and it'll jump you straight into that document. But if you open Photoshop alone, you'll get this window here where you can open things, create new projects, or you'll find a whole host of things that you've been working on in this bottom area here. So what we are going to do is create a brand new project. So we're going to click this button that says create new, and we'll get a new document page here. You have a bunch of options as presets. So if you're working with photos, there's going to be these standards up here. So it can make your life a little bit easier. You can just click, hey, I'm working with a 7x5 landscape at 300 pixels per inch. If you have something specific though, that's no problem. Over on the right side here, we can define exactly what we need. But yeah, a ton of presets that can save you just a little bit of time. And if you're not super tech savvy and you can't remember what the resolution is for 1080p video, if you click on film and video here, you might be able to find 1920 by 1080. Hey, that is HD video. That's 1080p. So if that's not natural to you, those numbers don't just pop into your head, you can certainly do it here. You can also actually open files up in Photoshop and it'll kind of conform for you. We'll take a look at that in a minute. But what we're going to do is we are going to start just with some video standards. We're going to go 1920 by 1080, and the 72 pixels per inch, that's not exactly the best in the world. We could go with that, but instead let's just up that to 300 to start with. Color mode, this is really dependent on what you want to do with the project. So if your intention is to create something that would be printed, you would want CMYK, so that's cyan, magenta, yellow, and Kelvin. Those are the colors for print inks. They are subtractive colors, so the more you add, the darker these things become. RGB color is for like web and stuff, so the more you add red, green, and blue color at full value, red, green, and blue, you get white instead of black the other way. Grayscale, yeah, if you want your image to be black and white, you can certainly use grayscale. You can do grayscale in either of these other color modes as well. But grayscale actually causes a bit of issue when we get into one of the projects in a week or two, where if you import or open an image that's already black and white or looks black and white or grayscale to the program, it will open you into a grayscale project or a grayscale color mode for the project. And as soon as you want to add color to it, you might run into some issues. So remember this for later, or don't. I'll let you know when we actually get there. But those are the three big ones. Actually, the two big ones are RGB and CMYK. Grayscale just ends up throwing us for a bit of a loop a little bit later on. Background contents, you can have this white, or you can have this transparent, or a background color if you'd like. I tend to either go with white or transparent. It is completely your preference on what you like to do, and if you don't know yet, that's just fine. I'll go with white for now, but do consider that you could also try transparent. And as we do, we have a few memes that we're going to create for this thing. You might want to try it a couple of different ways and see what you like. The transparent looks like a bit of a gray checkerboard pattern. Let's just see if it pops up here. If I click on transparent, nope, it's just going to look like this. But for us, once you actually open the program, it's going to be a nice little checkerboard area. Pixel aspect ratio, it's almost always going to be square pixels. I know we work in the like film department, so there's a potential that we would be working with something outside of square pixels. So if you're working with video with very specific pixel aspect ratio, you're going to get that as some kind of metadata information from whoever shot the footage, or if you shot it and you know that it was shot in some kind of weird pixel aspect ratio, you worked with a very old camera or a very expensive lens, then you can change that stuff right here. And you'll probably know as soon as you bring that stuff into the program if your image looks squished or squished in any direction, vertically or horizontally. It's a pixel aspect ratio problem. So I'm just going to go ahead and press create, and we're going to jump into our canvas. There it goes. So a few things were retained from how I normally work. You probably don't have these blue lines here. Those are guidelines, and we can add those if we need, or we can get rid of them. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them for you. All right, so now we are in the canvas of Photoshop. We have a ton of options, and it can be quite daunting as soon as you get into the program. A ton of tools over here, and then if you look even closer, if you click and hold on any of these tools, you'll find tools beneath the tools. So these tool sets, they're all kind of families, and they have similar functions. So if I'm looking at, say, the gradient tool here, you'll also find the paint bucket tool. So if you want to fill something in with a solid color, you'd use paint bucket, but you could also click and hold and you'll find the gradient. We can kind of fill in areas similarly, but a little bit different, right, with a gradient. But there's a ton of stuff like that. Text tool here, if I click and hold, I'll find a horizontal type tool underneath. If my computer doesn't crash, there it goes. So horizontal type tool, that's the normal type, and then vertical type tool right underneath there. If you needed to type vertically, which would be tremendously odd, but I suppose there's all sorts of design projects that could potentially call for some kind of vertical text. So over on the right side of my screen, you'll see a layers panel, and we'll get very in depth with what you can do with the layers panel. But just to show you kind of how things work, I'm going to take some text here. I'm just going to type text. I'm going to make it nice and big. I'll make it green. So as soon as I complete my text, you'll see over in the layers panel, I have a text layer here, and it says text because my text says text. That might be a little bit confusing for you, but how about I make a second one and we'll say title, a little bit different now, and we will change the color as well. Let's make it red. Okay, so now I have title and I have text. They are titled. Man, I'm making things confusing for you, aren't I? They are titled what the text actually says, what the text box has in it. And also, this is a hierarchical system of layers. So if I have my title layer, which is the uppermost layer, we can see that in our layers pane here, and I put it over my text, you can see that it's above the text. Now I can move these layers, so if title goes beneath the text, we see text above title. Hopefully that makes kind of some sense to you for our layers. There are a couple of other foundational elements in the layers panel here. We can see opacity controls. So if you're not familiar with opacity from any other Adobe program or design program or anything like that, that is like basically a transparency control. So we can make our text semi-transparent. If you click that and use the slider here, you can also just like highlight the text and say I want it at 25%. That would give your text, you'd only be able to see 25% of the text. It would be 75% transparent at that point. So there are a ton of things that are available to you in this layers panel, and we will get into those as we get a little bit more complicated in the program. But what we really want to do today is be able to import existing images, open existing images, edit those things, and then export them for the web. So we can hop on over to the internet and search for, if you are extremely uncreative like me, you can search for meme template, and then hop on over to the images tab, and we can find a whole lot of memes that are just kind of blank. So these are popular things on the internet, but it's kind of a blank slate for you to kind of fill in your own text and stuff. So this is a perfectly acceptable meme that we can kind of make our own. So how do we get this image into Photoshop? Well, there's a ton of different ways. Well, the first way, if we already have a project set up, if we right click and go to copy image, head back on over to Photoshop and paste it, we can press Control V on our keyboard for a shortcut. Also, you can go up to edit and then paste. Hey, there it is. So now we have our image there. We can see it in the layers panel, and it's in a kind of weird place. It's sandwiched between our two text layers. I'm just going to go ahead and delete those two text layers since I'm going to create new ones for this project. So as you can see, our image that we brought in is a significantly different size than our canvas, since we made our canvas 1920 by 1080, and then we brought in something that's non-uniform for that. So we did that for a reason, so I can show you this little tool that's very helpful to correct this sort of thing. So if we move on over to the toolbar on the left side, we can find the crop tool here. It's C on your keyboard for crop. Pretty easy to remember, but if you need to know what it looks like a little picture frame with corners popping out over the edge. That's a good description, I think. All right, so as soon as you click that tool, you'll see these highlighted corners and border areas, and what we can do from here is just shrink down our canvas to fit the size of our original image. And by default, you have these kind of magnetic edges, so it'll know kind of what size that layer is. So as you bring in the edges, it'll kind of stick to it for you. As soon as you're happy with the size of your canvas, you can press enter on your keyboard, and there you have it. You've made your canvas a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to press Control Z on my keyboard real quick. You don't have to if you've already cropped your image down, but just to show you that there's another way to kind of do this sort of thing. If you go up to image and then canvas size, you have the same options, right? So if you want to trim your canvas size to a specific dimension rather than like kind of conform it to a specific layer, you can punch in some new numbers. So if we wanted to cut this thing in half, essentially, we could change this to 1,000 pixels, and then press OK, and we'll see that our canvas is now cut in half. It didn't move things over properly, so we'd have to grab this layer and kind of piece our stuff back together. And I didn't have the pixels like calculated properly, so we still have this white border here. So this probably isn't ideal for this particular project, but it is important to know for other things that if you need to trim your canvas to a very specific size, that's the way to do it. Now there's one other way to do things, and that is up in image again. You can go to trim. So it asks you how you'd like to trim your canvas down, and you say, hey, the top left pixel color or bottom right pixel color, it's going to do the same thing for you either way. So it's going to say, hey, where is there color in these pixels? So since our whole background is white, it's going to trim away all of the white stuff until it reaches this corner. So we'll go ahead and press OK there, and that will trim things down too. So between the crop tool or the trim option here, those are both good options for you to trim down your canvas size for this particular assignment. The canvas size could work if you know the specific dimensions of your image, which you could know pretty easily from the Google image search here. If you hover over for a second, you can see it's 761 by 1024. So if you're a numbers person, that could work for you too. But in my opinion, this is a much easier way to work. All right, so now I am going to add a little bit of text to my meme. I'm going to click on the type tool over here. T on your keyboard is the shortcut for that. Now, if I just click and drag out a very large text box here, I'm going to get this annoying lorem ipsum placeholder type. And it is somewhat helpful for some people. It's kind of the standard now in a lot of programs where you know that you want text, but you don't really know what text is supposed to go there. So as soon as you drag this stuff out, you can set up your typeface and how things are going to look without actually knowing what the text is going to be. But for me, it is very frustrating. It's not something that I prefer. If you want to leave it on there, if that seems like a good way to work for you, that's just fine. But I'm going to show you how to take that off from the standard settings if you don't want that. So I'm just going to hop on out of my text box here, go to Edit, and then Preferences, and then under Type, you should see a few options here. What we're really looking for, though, is fill new type layers with placeholder text. So if I turn that stuff off, press OK, that initial text box that I created is still going to have it since it was created already. But now if I create a new text box, I should not have lorem ipsum at all. Now our font size was very large as well, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit, and I'm also going to change the color of my typeface to white. I'm using Impact font, which is like the standard meme font, but you certainly don't have to use it at all. You can use whatever font you'd like. This is a majorly creative exercise for you. You can absolutely use whatever images and text you want, so long as it's not horribly offensive. If it's lighthearted jokes, that seems just fine to me. So I'm going to pop a few text boxes in here and make a meme joke. So I have my first panel done approximately, but it's really tough to read my text right now. So I have these this light colored text, white, on a light colored background, and this isn't exactly what meme font looks like, really, is it? So we're going to add this little additional thing that's going to make it really readable regardless of what kind of background we have. So if I look over on my layers panel again, I can click either of my text layers, and then I can head down at the very bottom here. It's a small icon, so hopefully you can see it on my screen share software, but it is a little FX down here. If we click on that, we can find blending options. Let's just click blending options initially. You can click any of these specific things from the FX icon. So if you know what you want already, we can go to stroke or shadow. But let's go ahead and click on blending options so you can see everything is open right now. If you do click on one of those specifics, by the way, it will still open up this layer style panel. It'll just jump you to a specific page. So you decide what you want out of these things, and then you can adjust their settings. So what we want is a stroke, right? So that's an outline of our text. We're going to toggle on the stroke there, and we are going to size it up. And we can do an inner stroke or an outer stroke, and we'll take a look at what those two things look like before we decide what looks best. So if we look between those two things, one looks a whole lot more like a meme than the other, and that is that outer stroke there. So it really depends on what kind of font size you have, how large the stroke you want it to be, but that should make your stuff look just like the old-time classic meme. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the making memes text here. We're going to just jump straight into stroke this time. Okay, and the same settings are already there. The 3 might be too much since the text is a little bit smaller, but I think it looks just fine. So I'm going to press OK, and that's looking pretty nice. Now in my second panel, I need those same elements. I need the me text and the making memes text, but they'll need to be a little bit smaller. But rather than create these things from scratch, it would be nice if we could just duplicate them. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. There's a tool up here that's really helpful for us. We're going to use it all the time. It's the Move tool. It's V on your keyboard, and it looks like 4 arrows pointed in all different directions. That allows us to grab our text and move it around. So if your text is a little bit off from where you want it to be, you can do that. If you find that it's grabbing something you don't want it to grab, if it's grabbing the background, you can always click the layer that you want it to move, and that makes things a little bit easier, but it should kind of know what it's doing. So as soon as you click the uppermost layer, the most visible layer, and you actually click pixels that are in that layer, it should move that around. So what we can do to duplicate things is just press Control-C for copy and then Control-V for paste. That might be familiar for you guys. Or if you'd rather do something a little bit different, you can head on over to that Layers panel, right-click, and go to Duplicate. And then you would rename it. You could call it Me Panel 2. That may be a better way to keep organized about things, since you might end up with 2 text layers that are called the same exact thing. And it's probably not the worst thing for this particular project, but as you get really dense with layers and stuff, then it might cause you some issues. Now, I can resize this text in the way that you probably are already thinking. If I double click this, or I go to my type tool and select and highlight, I can go back up here and adjust the size of my font. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to do things, but maybe an easier way to do things, especially if you want to get used to working with things outside of just type, you can resize using the free transform option. So if you click and move this thing around, you don't really have the option to resize initially. And if you have the type tool selected and you click it and you see the corner border squares to resize, that's just resizing the text box. It's not resizing the size of the text. So what we want to do is enable free transform, and you can do that a few different ways. We can go to edit, and then under transform we can change the scale, rotation, or skew. You can select any of those things on. Scale is what we would want, and we could scale that down. Or what's a little bit easier than selecting each of these things independently is to just select on free transform, which would open up options for scale and rotation and skew. So as soon as you have free transform selected, you'll see those same border boxes around your text or photo or whatever layer you're working with in Photoshop. And if you hover over the corner, you should be able to see your icon change from diagonal arrows pointed away from each other to curved line between 2 arrows, and that's the difference between resizing, changing the scale of your layer, or rotating it. So if I have that icon there and I click and drag, I can rotate my text one way or another, or I can resize now, which I certainly want to do with this smaller version of the character in the frame. Now, if I want to kind of do things a little bit more uniformly, you see how as I'm rotating, it's very it's very precise in how it's turning, but if I want to make sure that I'm turning to like a 90-degree angle or a 75-degree angle or 45, if you hold down Shift on your keyboard, that gives you like an alternate version of how you make an adjustment. So what all we're going to do though is approximate how small this text should be. That looks good to me, and it looked like it was right under the armpit there. That works. Okay, I'm going to duplicate my making memes layer as well. And it's okay that this one is hanging off the frame a little bit. We're just trying to maintain consistency between the two images. And this last panel needs the joke. We're going to go ahead and add the stroke to that text as well to kind of match the rest of what we have. And there we have it. We have created one meme. Very simple, easy stuff, right? We do need to export this thing. So how we do that, there's a couple different ways to make things happen for us here. We can go to File, Save As. And then you have a lot of options. One is you can save to cloud documents. Since you are on the Creative Cloud now, you can save this in a fairly secure place where you can access it from anywhere. So if you're concerned that you'll forget a hard drive or something and you're bouncing between computers, you can certainly do that. Or if you're concerned that your hard drive will fail on you and you want to have things somewhere in the cloud, that's just fine for you to do. I'm going to save it on my computer though. Definitely, if you're going to put it on the cloud, have it on your computer too. I think it's just a safe way to work. But once we get here, we can save this as a Photoshop document file, and we definitely want to do that initially. So I'm going to find a safe place to put this. I'm going to put mine maybe in my documents file here, and we can call this meme1. Okay, now saving this as a Photoshop document file, .psd, allows us to retain everything that we've done over in this layers panel. So if we want to open that thing back up and change things around, that's just fine. We'll have access to do that stuff. Now, if we want to save this for the internet or for other people to see it who don't have Photoshop installed, who wouldn't have to then download the Photoshop document file and then import it or open it in Photoshop, we can save this as a file type that works on the internet. So that's like a GIF or a JPEG. JPEG preferred, I think. But right here where it says save as file type, we're doing the same thing we did before, File, Save As. We can click JPEG from the drop down here. Meme1 makes a lot of sense, and we can save that. And now it will give you options for export quality. So this doesn't have to be super high quality unless you plan on using this for maybe a portfolio, or this is like an art piece or something that is intended to be seen in high resolution. If it's intended just to be on the internet and poked fun at like a meme would be, the quality doesn't have to be that high. That said, it can be as high as you want it to be, so long as this file size here isn't ridiculously large. If it goes into the high megabytes, if it goes into like maybe 50 or more megabytes, then all of a sudden it might take a little while for your image to pop up on a web page. So if I turn my quality up all the way to 12, the maximum quality, it's still sitting at well below half a megabyte. That's going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that up. I press OK, and now my image has been exported as a JPEG. All right, so at this point, you've created one meme. If you did the same meme as me, you can't upload that and count that toward your assignment. But just to show you how you're going to get your stuff up on Canvas, it is a little bit tricky, but I would greatly prefer you to actually embed your image rather than attach the image. So if you embed the image, people can open up this week 1 memes thread, and they can see all the images without clicking on them and downloading them, which makes life a lot easier from the consumer standpoint. That's usually what we're thinking about as content creators. So I'm going to head on over to week 1 discussions under memes, and then I'm going to click this button that says embed image. Now you have options. If you have like a Flickr account, you could potentially use that. If you have some other kind of image hosting account, you could potentially use that as well. Canvas is a little bit finicky about how it embeds photos, so it might not work, but you're totally free to experiment with that stuff. But I'm going to show you a foolproof way, so long as you have some space in your Canvas files. So if I click on the tab that says Canvas, go to My Files, you can then upload files to your Canvas account. I'm going to go ahead and click that. In Documents, I'm going to search for meme 1. I'm going to find the meme that I've created, and I'm going to upload it. So now it's saved to Canvas, and then all I have to do here is press Update, and we'll see my meme as a regular post embedded, and I can click Post Reply. We will see a meme posted. So there you have it. That's what you'll do. You'll do it 3 times. You won't use this template, but whichever template you'd like. You can use whatever image you'd like to. If it's your own image, that's just fine. Your choice of images, your choice of text, basically whatever you want to do here. But do upload 3 separate ones. And before you go, though, I do need to show you one extra little thing. So when we started this project, we created a new canvas that was a specific size, and then we had to do all that cropping stuff to get it to the right size for our image. What you can also do is you can actually just straight up open a JPEG that you've downloaded. So if I have a JPEG in Documents, let's just go back to meme 1. There's my meme. All right, so there it is open. So if this was if I wanted to change this meme, I certainly could and make it my own and stuff. Something to note, I know I mentioned it before, but this is not a PSD anymore. This is a JPEG that I've opened. So all of those layers and stuff are not visible. Everything is kind of baked in. It's all one piece now as a JPEG. If I opened up that PSD, I would have access to all of the stuff that looks all of the stuff in the layers panel over here to edit and change. As a JPEG, it is what it is. I can add things to it, but or I could erase this stuff, but I end up erasing parts of the background as well. So that should be everything you need to complete the tutorial for this week. Make sure that you post all 3 of your memes as embedded images under week 1. And if you want to respond to anybody's projects and let them know that it was somewhat funny, that's helpful too. Good luck with these projects, and good luck with the rest of your first week at Webster.